Hello, students. This is Mr. Belay, and I'm here to go over the art component to your Energy in the Ecosystem Science Model Project. For one, I like the idea that Mrs. Duhan came up with that you're creating like an exhibit that would be shown in a museum to educate people on ecosystems and energy flow. This is a real thing. If you go up to the Berkshire Museum up in Pittsfield, they have tons of displays that show off different aspects of science. For you folks, you're focusing on energy flowing through an ecosystem. Think about an ecosystem that you're interested in making. What kind of animals, what kind of environment is in this ecosystem? Once you got one that you want to go with, two different approaches. You're either coming at this from two-dimensional standpoint, flat, um, or three-dimensional. You can see all the way around it. I want to go into detail on both of these so that you know what approach you want to go with. And all the examples that you're seeing in here are prior projects from Mrs. Duhan's classes. So these are students that she had before. These are their actual projects. All right, let's get into it. So 3D, this is a physical representation of an ecosystem. You need actual objects that are going to be in this model. That can be tricky depending on what you have. So considering what kind of supplies do you have, there's different ways to get these supplies. One, found objects, anything you can find, whether you find it out in nature, you find it in your house, you find it in the makerspace at school. What kind of found objects can you bring into this 3D model? The one that we're looking at right here, I'm going to say they brought in some plants, and I think that adds this whole like real life look to this model. I see some sticks in here, and some of them are painted, maybe to look more like trees. I think there might be some rocks down here in the bottom. I mean, that was a good use of found objects in this project. Toys. If you got some toys of animals or plants and you can use this in your model, go for it. This Northern Arctic, I love the whole environment, the fact that it's white, it looks cold, there's all this cotton everywhere that looks like snow. But I mean, look at those bears. I mean, those look real. And I'm going to say this kid probably just had toys of bears at their house. They put them in the model and it totally works. But maybe you don't have toys of animals and plants. Um, you could make them yourself. In this project, all the animals that you see here are sculpted. Now, this project special to me because this is my son's from back when he was in fifth grade. With Mrs. Duhan as a teacher, I can remember him talking to me about this project, and I watched him make this project. I gave him ideas, but he really did this on his own. So I'm going to use this one in greater detail. So different things that he included. Again, sculpted animals. So he was using Super Sculpey. You could use maybe like an air dry clay or Model Magic. But yeah, the little ducks, the alligator, the deer, the catfish in the background, the turtles. That's all him sculpting. Little figures to put into this model. Found objects. If you look, I mean, there's some sticks in here. They're supposed to be like logs. I think that adds some realism. There's rocks. Found objects. This is that eelgrass in the background. That's just from old aquarium stuff that we had laying around that he cut up and stuck in there. Painted backgrounds. I'm going to go more into the scenery, but you can see where this is supposed to look really like two different levels. Here, painted like a sky and ground and flowers and rain. Um, so think about how you're going to color things. And then he went with this like two level model here. It's supposed to be a Florida pond. So here we're seeing under the water before you're seeing above on the ground there. I think it really worked there. That's was pretty tricky for him to do with the cardboard, but I think he pulled it off. Um, your scene, how are you setting up the scene for this ecosystem? This one right up here, I mean, they did a nice, say, photograph or picture they printed out of some kind of woodsy scene there. Looks good. I mean, I can see into the distance. I do think that it looks a little plain on some parts of it, but oh my gosh, you look at this one, wait, over this direction. I mean, look at all that found objects. The fact that they found some rocks, made it look like a stream is flowing through. Stuck little, I'm gonna say like moss or something down there, and some tree branches that look like trees. Really good use of found objects. To make this 3D model like a whole scene for these animals and plants to be in. Be careful. Looking at this example that Mrs. Duhan sent me, I'm going to say too much. I'm sure this model probably has all the aspects of the energy flow in the ecosystem, but it looks crowded. Um, Maybe they just needed more space so they can kind of separate things away from each other. But even though this looks, I mean, it looks good. There's a lot of stuff going on, but it's like too busy. I feel like that's a little hard to look at. You kind of need some like empty spaces here and there to separate all this out. But a 3D model, this is definitely a really interesting approach for your ecosystem there. You don't have to go 3D though. You can go good old two-dimensional flat artwork. What are you going to include though? So for this one, I'm going to say collage. They must have either printed these photos out or found magazines that they cut up. But this works in that you have all the pictures of these different aspects for I say consumers and producers. Um, I would have liked to see it more where you can actually get a lay of the land here instead of just this like white background. But I do think collage could be a good approach for like a two-dimensional model. You don't have to use collage; just draw it yourself. If you look, I mean, I'm going to say to use marker, pointed at things. I think this works. Let me show you one that I created based off of the 3D model my son made. I'm like, I want to make a two-dimensional version of this. Um, so this is the same project as the other one, but a 2D version. Let me zoom in here so we can see a little closer. I tried using different artistic materials, construction paper. I used crayon. I used marker. I even used pencil for like the dark clouds that's raining. So think about what kind of supplies do you need? I know the makerspace in school has a bunch of things. You can always see me in the art room if you're like, hey, Mr. Belay, I can't find the right shade of green construction paper. I'm sure I can hook you up with some, two-dimensional supplies for that. Down here with the water, that one got a little tricky because I want to show above the water and below. So the top part, I just try to color in crayon darker, saying like, okay, well, this is the surface of the water. I separated it with some construction paper, and then I did crayon rubbing for the bottom part of the water, so it'd have like a different like texture, a different look to it. Also, I cut things out and I glued them down. So my son actually drew all like the animals. I drew the fish. He drew the rest of it. And then cutting those and adding those in on top of the crayon and look at like the deer is on top of the construction paper, like overlapping. I think that works visually to be able to see these as separate things. I think sometimes when you're just drawing the whole thing all in one like marker or crayon, can still look great, but I think you're going to get some more visual interest and it helped to be able to see the different aspects if they're made out of different things: marker, crayon, color pencil, construction paper. So I do think a two-dimensional is a really good way to approach it. Just be careful, on what you're adding in there to make this all work. You could make a mixture of 2D and 3D. So I found these projects to be pretty interesting here. I mean, you got some found objects for these clouds up here, but then you have like a flat background that looks great. I mean, this must be a printout of some trees. But then you have some like, what is it, the consumers and the producers, two-dimensional, but yet popping up. So I think that was interesting. Maybe just folding the paper or tucking a little something behind it to help it stand up. So I think this is a neat mix of 2D and 3D. Excuse me. Even this one, everything is relatively flat, but the fact that this must be some kind of like a box with a lid that opens, it's offering some like three-dimensional aspects that you have these like levels that you're up high, you're kind of midway, you're down low. So maybe you're trying to do some mixture of two-dimensional and three-dimensional. So, my friends, I wish you the best of luck. consider your ecosystem. If you're going 2D or 3D, what materials you're using in there, found objects, sculpted toys, construction paper, crayons. It's a lot. So definitely, when you're doing your planning phase, think think about how are you going to demonstrate, how are you going to show this ecosystem in its entirety, whether you're going 2D or 3D. So good luck, my friends. Uh, I would love to see the finished results. So I'm hoping I can go visit your classroom and see these, and Mrs. Duhan can take some pictures. Uh, Good luck, students. I wish you the best and rock out this energy in the ecosystem science model project. Bye bye.